In this video, we're going to be talking about note names on the staff for clefs other than treble clef. And let's start right here with the second most common clef, which is the bass clef. Now, and again, we mentioned in the previous video about note names, if you play trombone or baritone or tuba or percussion, you're definitely going to want to read bass clef. Other instruments that may sound bass clef notes, like the bari saxophone and the bass clarinet, they actually still read from treble clef music. Now, the bass clef is different than the treble clef. Remember, in treble clef, the bottom space is an F. Well, in bass clef, the bottom space is an A. One way you can remember some of these differences, the bass clef has these two dots here. And sometimes we call this the F clef because the line in between these two dots designates F. That's pretty handy. Meanwhile, if you follow a treble clef, G, this little curl, we call it the G clef because it ends on the G line right there. So if you draw a treble clef, this little swirl ends on the G line. So G clef, F clef. But honestly, I never call them that. But some people do. But it will help you remember F, line right here. So if this is A, then the next note up is B, C, D, E, F, G, and the top line is also A. And likewise, if we go backwards, G is the bottom line. F is below that. E is below that. And for especially you tuba friends, there are plenty of notes below this E that we're going to talk about here in a minute. And again, if you go above the staff, my trombone friends will appreciate this at some point if you don't already. After A, you keep going. B, C, D, E. And this E right here is actually the same E as the bottom line of treble clef. But they're not going to write, most people don't write trombone parts in treble clef because you spend most of the time in this part of the range of your instrument. There are times for trombones where you might see a unique clef that helps keep notes on a staff that's neither treble clef nor bass clef. But you can expect to see pretty much exclusively bass clef music if you're a trombone player, and especially a tuba player. Let's look at some other clefs while we're at it. So right now there's our treble clef. Look at this. Look how many different clefs there are. And each one of them has a name and a purpose. These weird looking ones here, these are versions of an alto and tenor clef. And that just tells you where middle C would be. Middle C is the note that's in between the treble and the bass clef. It's also the middle note on a piano, which is why we call it middle C. But we want bass clef, so let's just keep it to bass clef. All right, now in bass clef, as you recall, the bottom space is A. And we'll start there. So if this is A, what's this one? A up to B. From B up a note, C, D, E, F, and again, here's the two lines, the line in between the two dots on the clef, so that's one way to remember this is F. Keep going, G, and in the musical alphabet after G comes A again. And remember coming backwards, if this is A, the note before it, we're going down the staff, down in pitch. The note before A is G. Now, for my tuba friends, G is kind of a high note for you because you spend most of your time below the staff. Before we go too far below the staff, though, let's go back up here and recall that if we keep going up, we're going to add these things called ledger lines. So, if this is an A, this is a B. One space above the staff is B, and that's going to be an important note for my trombone and baritone friends because when I add a flat to that note, B flat, that's an open note for you, first position, very, very easy note to play. Don't put any fingers down for that. If I kept going, that's a C, and that's actually middle C on the piano. D, two ledger lines up is E, and then I could go all the way up to F, and I could keep going, but that's pretty much the highest range that you need to play really as long as you're in high school. There are certainly notes that are higher that you could play on a trombone baritone, but a reasonably high note would be that F. Now let's keep going down. If this is G, then this is the note before G in the alphabet. What's before G in the alphabet? F. And if that's F, one ledger line below is E. And if I kept going, D, C, two ledger lines below is C, and one more is B. And again, if I put a flat on that note and we play B flat, that's an open note on the tuba. It's kind of our opening low note. But yes, when you add valves, you can continue to play A, G, F. So keep that in mind, that there are plenty of more notes below this one, especially for tuba players. And tuba players usually play in this range between those notes. Trombone players are going to spend a lot of time in between these notes, B to B. So that's a quick little introduction to bass clef. Now all we have to do is lots of flashcard work.